Stitch Cuties, I'm Brittany with Stitches of Love Quilting, and in this video tutorial we are going to build out the applique units for our adorable Mrs. Claus block of the Christmas Lane quilt. I almost called it Christmas Moments, like our Garden Moments quilt. This is the Christmas Lane quilt. Let me show you the block. It is so absolutely adorable. So what we're going to do is build out applique unit 1, applique unit 2, and then we're going to put it on our background fabric and you'll be ready to go with stitching. So the first thing that you do is, of course, check all the contents of your box, get your pieces identified and labeled, and then I've gone on and laid them out in order of our applique unit number 1 and our applique unit number 2. But before we build those units, we need to mark the accent lines on pieces 12 and 20. So I'm going to turn my light pad on, I'm going to get my placement guide out, and what we're going to do is simply take those two pieces and we are going to draw basically the little eyeballs in place. So you can use a little straight line stitcher in your machine, or typically what you've been doing every month is little French knots. So all we're going to do, I'm going to use my Pigma pen on this because I'm just doing a little dot. I'm going to put my little gingerbread man right in place. And where those two lines are, I'm just going to mark one little dot and one little dot. That's it. Super, super little, so I can cover that with my French knot. And I'm going to do the same thing with her face. Now on her face, we have two pieces. They're exactly alike. That's so we can double line them. You only need to mark the little dots on one of the pieces. So a dot right there and a dot right there. And then you also want to notate where her mouth is. So I'm just going to put a dot right in the center of that oval. And then you can either choose to circle, do an outline of that oval and satin stitch inside, or you could do a little collection of French knots around it, however you want to, but I'm just going to notate the little dot in the center. I'll take these pieces and set them aside. So now, as always, what I have in front of me, I have my light pad, my applique glass mat, my fusing mat. Set aside is my Steady Betty, but I'll need that at the end. And all we're going to do is take our placement guide and put it right underneath our fusing mat. And of course, you want to make sure you have your iron turned on and ready to go as we're building our units. So we are going to build our first unit. You can just reference the pattern. So we're on step 5. We're going to build applique unit 1, which is pieces 1 through 7. So if you take a look at the block, it's the bottom of the snow, and then we're going to build her little leg and shoe unit. So with the white piece, there's 2 of them, just as always. For the peach and the white, you're going to have 2 every month. You're going to simply line these up right in place. And I have a little bit of my paper still left on, so let me make sure I pull that off right here. There we go, just a little sliver was left. So just put that like so. And I'm just going to very gently iron those together. Again, you're gonna do your final pressing once you're on your fabric. Right now, you're just adhering them together enough to build your unit. So now I have my cute little pile in numerical order, and we're gonna put down her little leg. Let me get my placement guide so I can reference that. Or I'm sorry, my little piece so I can reference it. We're gonna put down her right leg, then the yellow part inside of the shoe and the right shoe, and then repeat that on the left. So basically we're building the right leg and shoe and then the left leg and shoe. And the top of her little leg lines up perfectly with the top of the snow. So it's very easy to put these right in place. And I'm going to give it a press after I get all my pieces in place on this one, because I want to make sure that I get them in the right spot since I'm going through 2 layers of white. There we go. And then a little bit. Now I'm going to give it a press, because if I put this next piece down, I'll wiggle it. And then our yellow goes a little bit onto the green. And then you want to make sure that you have it in the right spot with this shoe. Looking perfect. Again, the bottom of the shoes goes right up along the bottom of the snow. And there we go. We've created our first unit. So you can just ever so lightly pull this up. It's all on one piece, and this is ready to use when we put it on our fabric. So next up, we are gonna start by building out pieces 8 all the way through 21. So essentially we're gonna build the whole Mrs. Claus in one unit. There's a point that I really wanna make sure you pay attention to, and it's notated in step 6. And that is that your piece number 12, your gingerbread, it goes underneath pieces 14 and 15, I believe these are. Let's take a look. Yes, underneath pieces 14 and 15, but it goes above piece number 16 and 18. So when we build our unit, we're gonna be very careful not to press this little guy down until he's over these pieces. Okay, so first up, it's very easy though. There's nothing to worry about. It's just something you wanna pay attention to. So get our little tree stem in place. Our Christmas tree. Love the fabrics in this quilt, don't you? That's why you joined, huh? Because it's so cute. Now we're putting down piece number 10. Again, it's a peach piece. So there are 2 of the pieces. I'm just gonna give those a little press in the tree where it overlaps. Now this doesn't touch this, right? So it's not joined together as a unit until we put down the sleeve. There we go. So you want to make sure it's nice and over your little hand and on the tree, like so. Now we're going to come over here to number 12. Remember what I said about our little guy? We're going to be careful with him and not give him any pressing down here until we've built out. But we can go on and put the heart in place. You can press on him up here. You just basically want to not press his right leg. That's it. So now we have her 2 hands, or I'm sorry, it's 1 hand, but the 2 pieces of her left hand. Just make sure they're in place. There we go. The second piece right over it. And then we have her sleeve. I'll go on and lay that out. There we go. All right, so where I'm gonna press is where these overlap. But again, I'm being careful not to iron on the right leg of my gingerbread. If anything, just put your finger there and you won't hit it with the iron because you don't want to iron yourself, right? Hopefully not. All right, so now we're gonna put down the dress and we are gonna lift up this leg because remember this piece goes under the little gingerbread. There we go. And now we're gonna put down the white stripe right here, perfectly in the middle. There are 2 pieces of that. So get those lined up just how you like. I am gonna give these a little press so they don't wiggle. Again, no pressing over here. And I'll press where these overlap in a moment. Now we're gonna lift his little leg again. And we're gonna put down 1 piece of our white. I'm gonna go on and give that a little tap. And now we're gonna put the second layer right over it. And now we're gonna be able to release his little leg. See, so he's under her arm, but over her dress. And it's just a little fun dimension, a little trickery that Mom likes to make us do to think, make sure we're all on our toes, right? There we go. So now that's all pressed. We can now finish her off with the cute little collar. Let me bring this over just a little. There we go. Now we have the second piece of our collar, just like so. And now, when it comes to putting her face on, remember piece number 20, we marked one of them. You want to put that one down last. So the unmarked piece is going to go down first, and on top of that will be the marked one. So your marked piece needs to be on top because you need to see the marks, of course. And we'll just press where that overlaps. Now, her hair. And look at that, in no time at all, truly no time at all, we've built our cute Mrs. Claus. How adorable is she? Oh my goodness. And we're just gonna give that a press. So lickety split, we have our unit. So what I'm gonna do is set this aside, and I need my background fabric now. So let me pull that out. And we are going to gently lift our unit. There we go, look at that, perfect. And what we're gonna do now, we don't need our fusing mat anymore, so I'm gonna go on and set it aside because you do get a little bit more light. All right, so now your fabric, nice and pressed, and just give that a little iron, get that disappearing ink to disappear. So remember, the fabric that we give you every month is much larger than what you need so that you can do all of your stitching and then trim it down. So don't trim your block yet, that's the last step. And what we're gonna do is put down Appliqué Unit 1, just like so. And right over that, we will put down Mrs. Claus and her gingerbread man. So just get her lined up. Oh my gosh, is she not the cutest, y'all? Oh my gosh. Let me wiggle her just a little. Come on, Mrs. Claus. There we go. Looking good. So now what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna give a little bit of pressing just to keep it in place. Remember, I like to do my final press over my Steady Betty. So basically right now I'm just making sure she's in. And now our star, piece number 22, I believe it is. And we'll give this a press right there. Again, just enough to get it to stick. And now, turn your light pad off. You are ready to move this over. And now you're gonna get a really good press. See, like I haven't pressed all my areas. Now you're gonna do your real press. If you have a larger iron, you can always pull that out at this step. I like this little guy for when I'm working with the little pieces, especially when I'm doing embroidery machine applique. I love, love, love this little iron. But if you want, you can get out your big iron when you're doing the final press. There we go. So I think we got everywhere, and now it's time to sew. How cute is she? I think she might be my favorite block. I just really, really adore her. Okay, so now you have done everything, and now it is time to look at your stitch order. Now remember, we tell you your stitch order. So you are gonna start with your turquoise on your snow, then your white, the only place you have white is on her legs. You have the dark green on her shoes. Remember, the hair is not stitched underneath the shoes. So it's secured when you stitch this inner square of the green with that medium dark shadow. Then you'll do your tree, the avocado. Then of course you'll do her face and hands with the peach. Then the red. I have to tell you, red was the most fun stitch. And then you can choose to satin stitch or however you want to stitch her mouth. This particular one that I'm showing you right here is from the embroidery machine, so it's a nice satin stitch that we filled in. You can do that same thing by hand, and it makes it look really cute. Then you're gonna do your gingerbread with that tawny tan, silver gray on her hair. Now I did on this, look, I just did a little line right here. It's not on your placement guide, there's no line, but if you wanna do that little line, see how it gives it like a bun effect? If you want that, all you have to do is take and connect these two lines with a little bit of a curve right here. And then if you want, you could give yourself that guide with maybe a sew line chalk pencil I would use at that step because it's so light. That gray thread is very light, so I would use a chalk line pencil, or you can just wing it with your sewing machine or not stitch it. It's not in the pattern. I did it on the embroidery machine because I think it looks so cute. And then you will finish it off with the stitching on the butterfly. You can do your machine stitch the eyeballs. So when it comes to the stitch sizes on this, this is a really easy block in terms of not having to change your. Remember on your curves to pivot, 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 pivot. And I would recommend that you keep your needle in the needle down position so that as you pivot, your piece stays in place. Your needle is holding it, and so you're pivoting the right way. And the goal with this is to always have your stitches, like pretend that each little arch right here or scallop is a full circle, and put a dot in the middle, and you're gonna want all your little points of your stitching to point in. See how they're to stitch, but you do have to go around the scallops. But in terms of the size of the stitch, the only place you may want to take your stitch size smaller than the rest of the stitch that you're doing is on this little heart. Take it down just a hair, and possibly, depending on the size stitch you're using, on the tree trunk, you might want to take your stitch, the bite in, take that down just a little bit, because the last thing you want to have happen right here them to be like a zipper. You want them to be like that, where they come close to each other, but they're not like boop over each other. And then on the legs, I didn't have any problem needing to take my stitch length down or my width down. Very, very easy to stitch outside of these scallops. But again, if you get into that pivot rhythm with your machine, you're gonna be good to go. Remember, there are no quilt police. So if you have a scallop that's not your favorite scallop, no one can tell you that and say anything, because it's your quilt and you're the quilter, and there are no quilt police. This block was truly, so far out of all the blocks, this is block 6 out of all the blocks so far, something about Mrs. Claus just made me so happy. I just absolutely loved it. I think I thought the camera was down this whole time, so I'm sorry if you weren't seeing that. I'll check it. It was just so, so fun to stitch her, and I really enjoyed it. And without further ado, that will end the tutorial. As always, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. Make sure to read your pattern thoroughly, because we do add in tips throughout and remind you of which pieces you have multiples of and all that good stuff. So happy stitching, and I hope you're excited for block 7.